I was 26 and lived alone in a quiet townhome on the far edge of a small city. One of those places that felt forgotten after 9 p.m. Most nights were the same. Finish my shift around 11, heat up leftovers, then game with my friends until the sun almost came up. But that night was different. Work had been brutal. Long hours, bad customers, a boss who never looked you in the eye. And even though I was exhausted, sleep wouldn't come. Around 2 a.m., I decided to step outside. I rarely went on walks, but every time I did, the silence of the night had this strange, calming power, so I threw on a hoodie, locked my door, and started walking. At first, everything was still. No wind, no cars, not even the hum of insects, just the rhythmic crunch of my shoes against the damp pavement. The town felt suspended, as if time itself was holding its breath. I passed dark rows of identical homes, their windows empty like blind eyes, and eventually reached the edge of the neighborhood where the streets thinned into a wooded road lined with old, scattered houses. The further I went, the darker it got. Street lights stood farther apart, their yellow glow flickering weakly against the encroaching trees. Then a scream cut through the night like a blade, a man's voice, distant but sharp, echoing so violently through the trees it was impossible to tell where it came from. It wasn't a cry for help. It sounded like a warning shout, a signal. I froze, the silence swallowing the world again. After 30 seconds, nothing. No rustling, no movement, just the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I forced myself to keep walking, convincing myself it was just some drunk or maybe a fox's scream carrying through the woods. But as the road narrowed and the trees grew thicker, the unease in my stomach turned heavy, almost physical. The houses that appeared between the trees looked ancient and abandoned, paint peeling, porches collapsed, curtains hanging like cobwebs. Even the pavement beneath my feet began to crumble. It didn't feel like part of my town anymore. The scream came again, closer, behind me. I spun around. The street was empty, just a ribbon of darkness stretching between dying streetlights. I waited, scanning the shadows until my eyes ached, but nothing moved. That's when it hit me. I didn't know where this road ended. It might not even loop back. I needed to leave now. I started walking faster, every sound around me suddenly too loud. The crack of a twig, the faint buzz of the streetlight behind me. After a minute or two, another scream ripped through the night, closer still, and this time I knew it was directly behind me. I turned and saw him. A figure on the road, dressed in black from head to toe, walking toward me at a slow, measured pace. The moment our eyes met, I turned away and hurried forward, trying not to look like I was running but desperate to keep him behind me. Every few seconds I glanced back. Each time the road was empty. He was gone. But somehow I knew he was still there, hidden in the woods, watching. By the time I reached the first familiar houses, my hands were shaking. The quiet streets that had felt peaceful earlier now seemed too still, like something was waiting behind every dark window. When I finally stepped inside my townhouse, I locked the door and stood there, breathing hard, the air thick and heavy. I told myself I was safe now. Then came the sound, a soft shuffling outside the door followed by a single heavy knock. I froze, heart pounding, pressed my ear to the wood. Nothing. Then another knock, slow and deliberate, like someone testing to see if I was home. I peeked through the window. The porch was dark. No light, no movement. Just the outline of a tall figure in black standing motionless beneath the rain. The same man. I stepped back, phone in hand, and called 911 in a whisper. He knocked again 5 or 6 times, then silence. When the cops arrived, he was gone. No footprints, no sign of him. They told me it was probably a prank. But over the next month, the knocks returned. Always at night. Always loud enough to wake me. Never long enough for me to catch him. Now, even when it's quiet, I hear phantom footsteps outside my door. I don't walk at night anymore, because whoever was screaming in those woods, and whoever followed me home, never really left. A couple of years ago, I was working nights as a Lyft driver. I liked the freedom of the job. No boss breathing down my neck, no fixed schedule. But that freedom came with a cost. My sleep was wrecked, my meals were random, and my nights stretched endlessly from one dimly lit street to another. Sometimes I drove until dawn, fueled by energy drinks and the illusion that I was in control. That night started like any other. Around 11 I logged in, took a few rides from bars and offices, the usual late shift crowd. Most passengers were tired or drunk, and I barely remembered their faces. The night felt routine, mechanical, like my car was driving itself. Then a new request popped up. I accepted it without even thinking. Out here rides were rare that late, and everyone mattered. Only after I hit accept did I glance at the map and frowned. The pickup point was nowhere near the main town. It was out by the old industrial roads on the outskirts, the kind of area you never had a reason to visit unless something went wrong. Still, I didn't think much of it. Maybe someone's car broke down. Maybe it was a shift worker getting off late. I shrugged it off and kept driving. The streets thinned out quickly, city lights fading behind me until all that remained was the glow of my headlights cutting through endless dark. Trees pressed close on both sides, the road cracked and uneven, wet from an earlier drizzle. When I reached the location, my GPS beeped, but there was nothing there. No houses, no gas station, not even a mailbox. Just black forest and a single stretch of asphalt swallowed by fog. I idled by the side of the road, messaged the rider, and waited. A minute passed, then 2, no reply. No movement, the kind of silence that eats at your nerves. Finally, I sighed, canceled the ride, and pulled back onto the road, annoyed at the wasted time. 5 minutes later, another request came in, from almost the exact same spot. Same road, same direction, just a mile further down. I hesitated. My first thought was that it was a glitch, but then I figured maybe the person's GPS was off the first time. Happens more often than people think. I accepted it, mostly because I didn't want to waste the drive out there for nothing. The fog was thicker now, the road even darker. When I reached the pin, I saw him. A man stood by the edge of the road, half shadowed by the trees. He wore a gray hoodie, jeans, and a large black duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He didn't wave, didn't signal, just stood there waiting. I rolled down the window a little and asked, "You order a lift?" He nodded once, climbed in the back, and closed the door softly. His destination showed just 5 minutes away, deeper down the same empty road. As I started driving, I noticed his reflection in the rearview mirror. He wasn't on his phone, wasn't looking out the window. He was staring straight at me. His face was blank, expressionless, but his eyes never moved. Every few seconds I'd glance up and catch them still locked on mine. The silence was suffocating. My hands tightened on the wheel. The engine's hum suddenly sounded too loud, the car too small. After what felt like forever, the GPS announced we'd arrived. The drop-off point was just as desolate as the pickup. No houses, no buildings, nothing but forest. I slowed down, looking for any sign of light or movement, but there was none. "This is the spot?" I asked quietly. He didn't answer. Then, in a flat tone, he said, "Turn off the car." My heart skipped. I looked at him through the mirror. That's when I saw it, the gun. He was pointing it directly at me, calm and steady, as if this wasn't his first time. "Get out," he said. My mouth went dry. I obeyed, hands trembling on the door handle. As soon as I stepped out, he followed, keeping the gun aimed at me. "Walk," he said, motioning toward the trees. We stepped off the road into the forest. The air was damp and heavy, every step muffled by wet leaves. He stayed several feet behind me, silent except for his slow breathing. My mind was spinning. Was this a robbery? A kidnapping? Or something worse? I tried talking, begging, offering him money, the car, anything. He didn't reply. Just kept walking me deeper and deeper into the woods. 10 minutes must have passed, though it felt like hours. The trees grew denser, the light from the road fading until it was swallowed completely by darkness. Then he said, "Stop." My body froze. I knew this was it. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but fear rooted me to the ground. Then adrenaline kicked in. I bolted, branches whipped my face, mud splashed under my shoes, and somewhere behind me, his voice roared, "Stop!" Then a gunshot cracked through the forest. I ducked instinctively, expecting pain, but none came. I didn't stop running. The echo of the shot faded, and so did his footsteps. Either he missed or he'd given up. I didn't care which. I just kept moving. Eventually, I stumbled onto a narrow side road lined with a few distant houses. I banged on a door until someone answered. A confused older man in pajamas. The police came soon after. My car was gone, along with my phone and everything inside. They searched the area for days but found nothing. The account the guy used on Lyft was fake, untraceable. For weeks after that, I kept getting new ride requests from that same area, always late at night. Always to isolated coordinates along the same stretch of road. I never accepted them again. I stopped driving altogether. But sometimes, when I'm on a dark road or see headlights approaching in my rearview mirror, I still get that same feeling, that somewhere in the dark, he's still waiting for me to turn around. It had been raining all day, the kind of steady, gray downpour that made everything outside blur together. I didn't mind it, though. Rain always gave me an excuse to stay inside without feeling guilty for wasting the weekend. It was Sunday, and I'd spent the entire day on the couch half watching shows and scrolling through my phone, too tired to do anything useful. When the clock hit 10, hunger finally forced me up. I wasn't in the mood to cook, so I grabbed my keys, threw on a jacket, and decided to drive to a nearby fast food place. The streets were nearly empty, the rain tapping against the windshield like restless fingers. 20 minutes later, I pulled back into my neighborhood, headlights cutting through sheets of fog. That's when I noticed it, my bedroom window glowing faintly upstairs. Every other house on the street was dark, but mine looked alive, lit from within. It froze me for a second. I always turned everything off before leaving, and I hadn't even gone upstairs all day. For a moment I tried to reason it away. Maybe I'd forgotten, maybe a timer light kicked in, but deep down, something felt off. Still, I was tired and hungry, so I parked and went inside. The house smelled still, almost stale from the closed windows. I set my food on the table, then climbed the stairs, my shoes squeaking against the wood. The hallway was completely dark. No light came from the bedroom at all. I stood there frowning, every nerve suddenly on edge. I could see clearly into every room. They were all dark, untouched. I stepped into the bedroom anyway, scanning corners I'd seen 1,000 times before. Everything looked normal. Maybe the rain or my headlights had reflected off the glass somehow, giving the illusion of light. It made sense, kind of, but I couldn't shake the unease crawling up my spine. I went back downstairs, opened my food, and turned on the TV. The sound filled the silence and calmed me for a while. I told myself to stop overthinking and ate until I was too full to care. At some point I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew, the room was dim, except for the flicker of the screen, and that strange feeling was back, the sense that I wasn't alone. My skin prickled. It felt like eyes were on me. I sat up, scanning the shadows. Nothing. I shook it off. But every few minutes I'd glance over my shoulder again, that same crawling fear returning stronger each time. Finally, I got up and switched on the living room lights, flooding the space with yellow warmth. It helped a little, but the corner near the hallway still looked darker than it should have, the shadows pooling unnaturally like ink. The air felt heavy. I turned on the hallway light too, then decided to head upstairs and call it a night. I was halfway up the stairs when, suddenly, a light upstairs flicked off. I hadn't realized anything was on until that exact moment, when the faint glow vanished and the hallway plunged into deeper darkness. I froze mid-step. My mind tried to rationalize it, a faulty switch maybe, but I could feel my heart racing faster with every second. Slowly I continued upward, each step groaning under my weight. When I reached the top, the house was silent except for rain ticking against the roof. I looked into my bedroom. The moonlight spilled faintly through the window, outlining the bed, the dresser, the half-open closet door. My throat went dry. I called out a quiet, "Hello?" and instantly hated how small my voice sounded. No answer. I stepped forward and flipped the light switch back on. The bulb hummed to life, throwing pale light across the room. Everything looked exactly as I'd left it, until something shifted at the edge of my vision. I turned my head toward the closet. The door moved, slowly, just a few inches, enough for a sliver of darkness to open wider, and in that gap, I saw an eye staring straight at me. For a single heartbeat, we just stared at each other. Then the door creaked wider and a man stepped out. His clothes were rumpled, his hair greasy, his smile crooked and unnatural. He didn't lunge or shout. He just started walking toward me, hands raised like he was trying to calm me down. "Wait," he said softly. "Don't run." His tone was gentle, but his eyes were wild, unfocused, like he wasn't entirely there. That was all it took. I turned and bolted down the stairs, nearly slipping on the last step as I grabbed my phone and ran outside into the rain. I called the police from the driveway, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. The house loomed dark behind me, every window black except for the faint glow of the TV still playing inside. While I was on the call, I saw him. He burst out the front door and ran down the street into the fog, disappearing between the trees. When the officers arrived, they searched the place. The back door's lock was shattered, the frame splintered. He hadn't broken in that night. He'd been there the whole time. He'd probably entered while I was out getting food and had been hiding upstairs for hours, maybe longer. What terrified me most wasn't that he'd been inside my home. It was the light. The light I saw from the street meant he'd turned it on himself, not to look for anything, but maybe just to let me know, without even realizing it, that someone was waiting for me to come home. I didn't sleep for days after that. Even now, every time I see the reflection of a light in a dark window, I wonder if it's just glass, or if someone's standing on the other side, watching,